It works. New project here in the workshop. It's a lawnmower, or it was a lawnmower, bits of it a lawnmower. We're going to do something for Mud Billies, wanting to do something different for Mud Billies. And a lawnmower was a good idea, so we're thinking, well, I don't know what we're thinking yet, but we're going to do something silly with it. Picked it up, got delivered this morning. A chap that collects them and reconditions them and stuff from South Wales brought it up. She's a honey. That's the plan. There it is. Let us know what you think we should do with it. We're thinking big engine, big wheels, all the silly things, but a bit of feedback would be great. Let's do that.
What, push it down the hill?
Yeah, it'll be fine. The wheels didn't fall off, which is a bonus. So the plan now is we're going to, this is the rough plan. We're thinking, the friend's got a VTR 1000 bike engine, which would go lovely in the front. By lovely, I mean it'll go in the front. And then we're thinking put the rear tyres on the front, and then get some big ones that we've got already to go on the back. We're going to move the rear axle back and the front axle forward, lower the chassis. The change in wheel size will lift it up, and then make it wider on the rear end and probably wider on the front as well. Get the seat as low as possible, change the steering angle so it's a little bit more go-karty and less tractor-like, but then keep as much of the tractor-y type stuff as possible, and then send it. It's going to be 16s, I think. 4 bolts. There you go, these bolts. 916. My biscuit tin full of random shit. The peg. I'll go again. Roll it out. Look at that. So this is the rear axle and gearbox inputs there. So we're in neutral. It's 3-speed and it's got reverse. It's got an open diff, which we might change. And we basically just need to put drive to this either with a belt or a chain from the motorbike engine. These wheels are going to come off. We're going to widthen the axle quite a bit, and then drop the seat low enough so it goes between the wheels, and then have big wheels, probably with some arches, and then bolt this at the rear of the existing chassis to lengthen it. Can we whip the front axle off, do the same again, and then we'll take the wheels off and just lock them in position as well? Yeah? We can whip the back wheels off and all that jazz. I'll just check that out. Good. Now look, we want to lower it to the same height as this now, don't we? Nice. So this is a mock-up with lots of wooden chocks of what we're thinking. So we've lengthened it, essentially we'll move the front axle forward, possibly even a bit more than that, so we can get a steering lock and make it a bit wider actually. What do you reckon? Be able to get lock in there. That's not too bad actually. And then we push the rear axle right back, widthened it so that the seat clears, and we drop the seat down so we'll have a really good position, and then the steering wheel obviously is currently the country mile away. We'll change the angle of it and move it further back. So it's comfortable to use, move the foot pegs and everything back as well. Engine in the front, very long chain. That's the worst that could happen. These little track-chain ones like that, I think. 10 spanner. We're just taking the bits off the front of the Commando 8-speed, so we can try and put the engine in the front and just mock it up and see how much space we don't have. Oh well, it's all a Peggy, right? Peggy's lawnmower. Right. It's getting lighter. So we're going to try and put the engine now in there, or on there. So this is a 1000 VTR, Honda VTR engine.
No, sit down, I can't get you both in shot. Crouch down by it. Okay.
Just hug it.
There you go, that's better.
So this is a 1000cc motorbike engine from a Honda VTR. I don't know what year, let's say 2000. And we're basically going to throw it on the chassis rails there and see how well it fits or doesn't. We know it's already really tall, so it's not going to clear the bonnet, but we want to keep the bonnet, so we might have to lift it and lower it and make it work in there. We don't really know. We're going to throw it on there, see what happens.
Ready? Yep. Sorry. Just do back on your knees. I did.
She's a big old girl. So we've put the engine on the chassis rails and just balanced it on there, and then put the bonnet on the top. Clearly doesn't fit where it used to live. It's never going to fit where it used to live, but we don't want to cut it up, so we're thinking we're going to make it fit there. So we'll bring the dash up and then we'll bring the front up as well, so that'll live there, and just try and make it proportionate and make it look like it lives there. And there's a little pony trying to jump out of the wheelhorse. We've mocked the chassis length and width with the wheels as to where we want it proportionally. We were kind of hoping to put it on the trailer behind the cannon, because we have a couple of 3 foot at the end of the trailer where we put stuff like the gazebo and stuff. It would have been nice to chuck that on the back. And if it was just a lawnmower, like it was when it got here, then it would have fit perfectly. But now it's not hugely far off being the same size as the cannon, so it's probably not going to, well, it's definitely not going to go on the trailer now, so we're going to have to see about getting another trailer to tow it or something, but we'll worry about that afterwards.
What's the issue now?
Engine's too big. Engine's really big actually. Well, yeah, it's not. It's just once you add the carbs and the airbox and everything on, it just is like an extra 10 inches or so. So obviously we can probably lose the airbox and just put some cone filters on there, but then they're still going to stand up a good few inches on top of a couple of extra inches on top of an engine that was already pretty tall. We don't want to modify the chassis and lower it too much because I think it'll be too low then. So I don't know.
Or you do that one and then put another one the same.
Yeah, exactly. And then on it back down there. Just really wanted to avoid cutting it.
You do it neatly, it shouldn't be that bad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If we cut it and leave like an inch border all the way around.
Yeah, yeah. That's it, cut it as tight to this as possible.
What?
Right, we need to make this first before we do any of that shit though.
Mark the rear axle first. And make a front axle and put the engine up.
Good day. This is the rear end then, so it's the reduction gearbox, or it's the gearbox actually because it's 3-speed and it's got reverse. And then the rear axle with the diff in it. So originally this lived underneath where these wooden blocks are, and we've unbolted it and we're going to move it back to here so that this face is here, which will lower the lawnmower and stretch it a bit as well. So we're going to make up a mounting face for the bolts there that'll go on there, and then reinforce it with a bit of box section along the bottom, and then pick up a couple of bolt holes on the top from here somewhere, just to give it a bit of strength. I'm cutting this part of the chassis off where the gearbox originally mounted here. So I'm taking that off because this will be the lowest part of the chassis, and then we're going to use that bit up here to remount the gearbox. I'm going to try and do it neatly with the grinder. Right, so now we've got that bit off, we're going to turn it upside down, I think, and then bolt it to there, and then weld it to the chassis with a bit of strengthening, and then we're going to run something to these two top holes as well, because the seat's going to go over there as well.
So what's the idea behind the angle iron?
Just extending the chassis back so that we can pick up on these two mounting holes that were on the gearbox. So we'll run another pipe across there and then bolt down to it, and then I'll tie all that in together. So that's the rear end mounted now. We've got those 4 bolts in the front, like on the bulkhead type thing there, and then we've knocked up these 2 with that plate that pick up off the top original ones as well, so that should be pretty sturdy now.
That still needs to go higher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not a vast amount.
No.
I don't need to rake that back.
No, I think you'll be alright.
You know, I think it might be alright. I am tempted.
The thing is, if it is angled back more into you, when you crash, you're going to fucking hit it hard. So
Yeah.
at that angle, it's a bit nicer.
Yeah, we'll gauge it. If we have got to angle it, that would be alright, because it means we can use UJs.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to be very strong.
No, it's not.
And those big roll wheels,
Yeah.
when we're fucking hammering it, bouncing off of everything, it's going to be taking a beating. On with the project a bit further, we are sort of figuring out what we're going to do with the rear axle in terms of making it wider. We've pushed it back now, and I've got a couple of these in the scrap bin, which are Can-Am hubs that we're not going to use on the race car, but we can use on this, which will be fine. And seeing as we're running Can-Am wheels that are also out of the scrap bin, or out of the pile of stuff that we're not going to use, then that makes sense. It means we can mount a wheel bearing, a Can-Am one again, obviously, and just mount a wheel bearing on there, put it in the axle tube that we're going to make up, and then use some scrap Can-Am shafts, which we've got plenty of, that have been broken, and cut that down to suit.
Why have you got so many broken Can-Am shafts?
Yeah, because they break themselves. I figured out that the distance I need from the centre line of the gearbox to the inside of the wheel was 575 mil. So from that I've figured out the length of the shaft that I need to add on to the existing shaft. So this is the Can-Am shaft that I've cut down. It's got the splined end which will go into the Can-Am hub with the Can-Am wheel. And then the plan is we're going to put a sleeve onto there and then a sleeve onto there, and we can weld all of that together, plug weld it, and that'll give us our shaft length that's correct. So we just got to do that. The next bit we want to do on the rear end, once the axle's done and the shafts are the right length and everything, so while we're working on that, we need to mount this rear panel, which is originally what the seat mounted to. So we've got some scrap, more scrap out of scrap bin, which is unequal length box section, that we're going to weld about there, drill 2 holes in it, and then we can use these existing bolts here, bolt holes here, to bolt this panel straight down and onto there like that. So we're just going to do that.
That's not going to be the seat though, is it?
That's not the seat, no, that's just free space. So next up then is a seat, obviously. So again, from the parts bin of shit that we have lying around, we found this seat. We wanted like a low back seat that kind of fitted with this rather than a big race seat like this. So the plan is this is a steel seat and we've pulled all the foam and stuff off of it. And what we're going to do is, it's quite large, so we're going to cut it down to about here, which will make it a low back seat. And then we're also going to shorten it because it's quite long, so when it's on there, if it was as it is now, we just wouldn't be able to get in it or out of it. So I'm going to shorten it and make it a bit smaller and then get it mounted. Also, I've got, from our random pile of stuff, mounts for the seat. So we've got these like side mount pieces that I found, but we haven't got a full set, so we need to make up one more of these, and then we can get it mounted.
And that'll go where, roughly?
On there. You can cut the seat up.
I can cut the seat up, okay.
You cut the seat up, and I'll make the other one of
up.
them things to mount that. So I made up my two like risers for this panel, which will go there like that. They'll get welded in, and then I'll be able to drop this panel straight on top of there, bolt it down.
Yeah. If I cut that off, cut the same distance off the top,
Yeah.
and then that'll make that'll should do.
Yeah, to cut those two tubes off, these two,
The lower ones, and then cut the same distance off the top tubes.
and then you'll be able to get it in there, won't you? To know how much to take off there, because it won't be quite the same distance, because it's at an angle. It'll be able to slightly less, won't it? But if you whip them off, then you can do that, and then we can sort of shape these to suit, and stitch it all back in. Cool.
So a few people on the socials have been asking a little bit about why we're building a lawnmower and what's all this Mud Billies about.
Two-part question, two-part answer. Why we're building a lawnmower? Because we're stupid, and it was a good idea at the time, and marketplace is always good for finding dumb ideas. Mud Billies is actually the reason why we're doing it. So Mud Billies is like an off-road event festival, which is the 7th and 8th of September, so in a few months' time. And yeah, it's just a gathering of sort of like-minded crazy people that want to do cool off-road stuff, and you can enter with bikes, quads, side-by-sides, regular 4x4s and racers and stuff. And then they also do a miscellaneous class, which is basically bring anything crazy that you want to bring, whether it's a lawnmower, whether it's a tractor or a trike or some other dumb project or cool project. So that's why we were building it. We've been with the side-by-sides a couple of times as well, so we thought it'd be nice to take something else as well. And yeah, a dumb idea, so I think that'll be a cool one. You can join us, you can get the tickets, actually thinking about it, on the Hillbilly Nation's Instagram. There's a link on their bio, and we'll stick it in the comments of this as well, where you can go and get your tickets to spectating. It's family friendly, you can bring kids, you can bring pets, you can bring cider, and you can basically have a good time. Okay, so next bit out of the, well, it's not really scrap because it's new, it's just been on the shelf forever and a day, as you can see, but there's an air tank from from a lorry that we'd got on the shelf that's never going to get used now, so it makes sense to use it. And we're going to use that for the fuel tank. So we're going to mount the fuel tank in the back of the vehicle, somewhere here like that, and then we'll pick up off these bits and bobs to fill it and take the fuel out and stuff like that. But we'll probably end up with some straps over it to mount it to this panel below now. On with the fuel tank and mounting that, or the to-be fuel tank. I was originally thinking straps over it, but that's just a lot of work, unnecessary work. So some scrapyard angle iron, or scrap bin angle iron, and then I'm literally going to weld it on there and then drill through, and the same the other side, and I'll bolt the tank down into the panel.
It's going to be really hot. I've already got holes in the fronts of my trousers.
Stone cold.
That's not. That's not.
Don't touch them bits, then you won't stick there.
If I spontaneously combust, it's your fault. It's way better. Yeah. Even if I sit right at the back, I think it needs to tilt back slightly.
You can tilt back as much as you want.
If you tilt it back like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's still loads of gap.
Yeah. Because you're very like upright otherwise. You're still mowing your lawn when you. Oh, literally where I've just done the weld.
Well, the top, we said the top was going to be there, didn't we? Because we were going to go like that.
Yeah.
So you can lift it up a bit to say there, something like that. No, we said there, didn't we? We said we were going to cut it off there. Remember?
Yeah.
It'll be like that, right?
Right. It's on. Just don't lean back.
You've left some sharp bits there. Right?
Yeah, I know. Just going to cut it off anyway.
So we've got the seat in and still finalising its shape. But Harry's reduced it here, which means you can get in and out, and it's sort of under your bum nicely rather than coming right behind your knees. We've raked it back a few inches as well to get a nice position, and then Harry's lowered it as well, so it's quite nice. And then we were just figuring out what we're going to do with these sort of shoulder fins that are from the original shape of the seat, which normally are up here. And we're going to try and keep them. And yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Just got to finish it off. I'll sit in it and then you bunch of pieces. That'd be nice there.
So what's next?
Steering. I'll get the seat mounted and then steering. More stuff. Currently we've spent nothing, apparently. So I've got this on the shelf, which is a 90-degree steering box, or a 90-degree box, 1-to-1, and they go in the same. Do they go in the same direction? No, they don't. They go opposite direction. No, they don't. They go. If I turn that way, that's going that way. Is that right?
No, that's going to turn you right.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's right. So we're going to use that to replace this sort of old school rack and pinion, purely because that, well, it's missing teeth, and it's just not going to be strong enough for once we've got these bigger wheels on, and we'll be bouncing around with a lot more weight on it and stuff like that. It's just not going to be strong enough, so we'll get rid of that. It means we can move the steering wheel and stuff around, and that'll be really strong.
Basically, we're on with building the seat now. So we've got a set of mounted rails, I think out of one of the Can-Ams, and we're going to sort of do something different here and actually weld the rails to the bottom of the seat and then attach the brackets to the mower. So I'm going to get on with just welding these on and then cut them back so that they fit properly. So now that I've welded the rails onto the bottom of the seats, we're going to use these brackets and drill a couple of holes. The idea is to have these mounted here, which will then attach to the bottom of the seat rails, and then have the back of the seat rail attached here, which should allow us to mount the seats somewhat like that.
So this is the Honda VTR engine that we're going to put in the front of the lawnmower. It's a 1000cc V-twin. It's like a 90-degree V, so it's quite wide in that sense. But we're going to run it in that orientation like that. We're going to drop it in the chassis now and see where everything lands. We've got a bunch of mounting points in different places. There's a really good one there, which we'll use. And then there's a couple over here, some down lower at what will be the front. But we need to chuck it on there, get it in the position that we want it, try and get it as far back as possible so we don't end up with this super long thing, and see where we go from there.
What, ready for dropping it, yeah?
Yeah. Just move that because that's going to get chopped and then we'll never be able to find one of them again.
Yep, got it.
Sweet. Nice. So we've dropped it in here. I'm pretty happy with the position of it, and then we've pushed it back in between the existing structure of the lawnmower there, and it fits nicely between there. So I've drilled a hole through and that's landed really nice and picked up off the existing mount on the back. So we can strengthen that end up, run that as the rear mount, and then we've just got to build a front mount now. Nice. So that's the rear mount that we've dropped in, and we've got the sump lifted up off the chassis, so we've got clearance there. And now I'm going to make up a front mount that's going to pick up off of these two big ones and then these two here, I think, and then drop it down to the chassis. So we've got it mounted at the rear and at the front then, that should be pretty solid. So I'm going to go off of that one at the top, and then I'm also going to go off that one there, I think. Just just going to have to notch that round. I'm drilling these washers, so they've given me something good to mount to, and then I'm going to, so I'll go drop down to there and then to there, so I can weld a bit of tube on there, and that still lets you get to the bolt, but then I can pick up more tube to come up here, do a similar sort of thing there, and then go up to the top as well, and that'll give me my mount for the front. Do the same on both sides, and then I don't need to go in anywhere. So I've now got 3 solid tubes to mount up off. So I'm literally just going to join them up now, and then when that's all bolted in, that'll be nice and strong. Hey, can you see that? Does these 2 tubes look in line?
Go that way.
In?
Yeah. Yeah, but you're doing that on the top.
As long as the bottom's the same, yeah. Ow. Right, wants to go that way.
Yeah, just a little bit. More than that.
More?
Yeah.
Nice. Mount made for this side, which will drop in there nicely. I'm just going to bolt this on and then do the same the other side. Bolted on there now on this side, so I'm just going to do the same the other side, get that bolted on, and we're done. We can now look at fitting the steering box. Didn't want to get on with doing this because we didn't know where the engine was going to sit, and we didn't want the engine to interfere with this or vice versa. Incidentally, there's a ton of room down here because of the shape of the engine. There's loads of room here, and the rack comes down quite neatly by the engine, so we're thinking, with that being 90 degrees but then the steering column going off there, we're going to put a UJ in here and then mount that so that it runs to the front axle. It's going to go under the chassis so that this shaft runs underneath the engine, and then we'll probably shove it as far forward as we can to reduce the angle on the UJ. That's roughly where the steering wheel is going to sit. We've spaced it up about 3 or 4 inches there to get a good position when you're in the seat. So now all we've got to do is get a UJ from the end of that column onto that and mount this as well. The box comes with these bolt-on ends, which we can machine up, and then that will allow us to weld something to them, UJ or shaft or whatever we need to make it all work. They're called star couplings apparently. So I've got a UJ there that's got that size diameter, which didn't fit in the star coupling here. So I've machined the star coupling so that now that pushes into the star coupling, and I can get it straight and then weld it up, and then the whole thing can, the star coupling and the UJ, which are now one thing, can unbolt from the shaft and bolt on.
So for mounting the steering box to the mower, just whipped up some piece of angle iron with some holes in it, and then that'll allow us to hopefully mount this about there, which will keep the output for the shaft level with these 2 holes that we already have in the front of the mower to put the steering shaft in.
Cool, and while he was doing that, I was doing bits on the lathe. So I've machined that down so that it'll fit in this end of the UJ like that, and then we can pinch it down, and then when Harry's bolted that in, that'll go on there, that'll go on there, And then this end will go on the other bit that I had that I've lost, which is there. So that'll drop into there, and then we can weld that up. So that'll be one piece that one end goes onto the steering column and the other end goes onto the 90-degree box. So we're just going to assemble that now, weld this up and make it fit. So I've machined that out just a little bit, just so that it drops together like that, and that's nice and tight. I can now weld all that up and get a really good weld on there, and that'll be strong enough then to go onto the end of the steering box. We've already done that end. So Harry's bolted those two bits of angle on like that, and then we're going to position that as far back as we can and tack it in, and then look at running the shaft at the front. But we want to make sure that the engine doesn't foul that, so I think we'll probably best chuck the engine on, position this, tack it, and then take the engine back off.
Yep.
Probably ready. Hold your horses. Go on, you scooch it back and I'll lift it.
The whole thing's rolling.
Nice. Yeah, so that's bolted in there, and then you can see there at the minute the column's hitting the engine, or the UJ's hitting the engine, so we know we need to move that around a bit to be able to get it to clear before tacking her in. That's it. That should clear nicely there. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it should be alright. Just whether that's central.
True. So do we need to stick the front bit on first to make sure it moves? We do, don't we? That front shaft.
But we haven't made the front bit yet.
No, we have. Because I don't need to, because it's the same diameter. So we've got the yoke for the other side of the little 90 box, and then some 20mm bright bar, which we're going to use, and they happen to be basically the same size, just with a little bit of... And there we go. So that can be welded up. So we're going to chuck that in the chassis. Harry's already pre-drilled those two holes in the front there, one of which was an existing hole which is just opened out, and then the other one in front of it matches. So we're going to chuck that in there, make sure we've got the box central before tacking in the steering box unit. Come a bit more, mate. Look, look. Float and sit. Off down.
Eyes.
So Harry's tacked that in. You can't see because you're all the way on the roof. Harry's tacked that steering box in, so we're just going to lift the engine out of the way and check it all. And then in those little yokes were keyways, so we're going to put the keyways in, steer the steering, make sure that that shaft out the front actually turns. Ready?
Yep.
Let's trip over some stuff.
Yep.
Just give that a tap.
They go all the way back beyond those collars.
Yeah, just tap that on.
Yep.
Right, so that steers now. Nice. Beautiful. Super strong. That's working how we want it to, with the box mounted, our UJ set up, clears the engine, runs out the front. We know the front axle is going to be here somewhere. We're not going to bother cutting this bar until we know where we need to be cutting it. We might even stick a bearing on this end, so it's not just running through this steel here. We'll probably just stick a bearing on this end somewhere. but that is functioning steering. Almost. I am going to get on now with extending the chassis, because we know we're moving the front axle. When it's done, we're moving the front axle forward, so we need somewhere to mount it to. So I'm going to extend the front of the chassis using angle iron. So I've cut up some angle iron to basically run over the top, make a frame at the front, and just extend this a few 100mm. So I'm just going to cut off some bits, prep it all up, tack these in place before going mad and welding. Okay, let's stick this engine back in the hole then. Yep. Try and lift it back if we can. Nice. Next bit of the project then, obviously now I've extended the chassis this way, we can get a front axle in there. We've already started building a front axle, or the swivels for it, which I'll tell you about later because I haven't done the other side. So when we do the other side, we'll video it and it'll make a load more sense, but just pretend it's not there. But it is. So grab that. And then we marked, that's where we're going to cut it. So drag it your way. So basically we're going to set up where we want the axle. We've decided to move it 200mm forward from the end of the chassis. And I've marked that 200mm on the new chassis piece. So we're just going to centre it with where we want it in relation to the back axle, because the idea was we were going to have this inside of this tyre match the inside of the rear tyre. Is that right? Or the outside?
I think so, inside.
Something like that. Obviously the rear's wider, with wider wheels. But then we need to make sure that we can get the full steering angle and not be where your feet are when you're in there. So we're just going to figure out spacing and where we want it and how wide we want it essentially, and to maximise the steering angle. So we did mark on here the centre line. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, about there. And then bring her forward to there. Yeah. So when you put it on full lock at that, Harry, and I hold it where we want it. So that's at full lock. It gives us a ton of steering angle. And then if you look at where the foot pedals are over there, when your foot's on, obviously we've still got pedals to go on there. But when your foot's on there, it's far enough away from the wheel, which is not driving, to be fair, so it's not like going to suck you in or anything, but it's far enough away to be as safe as this is going to be. So that's where our axle needs to go. Okay, we're going to cut that tube now. We know how wide we want the axle, and then we'll be able to mount it on there and go from there. Axle tube cut, still warm. So we need to, that's where we want to mount it, directly on top of that. So we just need to weld it there. So what I'm thinking is, with a couple of bits of angle iron, if we tack that in there, oh, that's still warm, roll it up to there, and then that gives us something to weld the tube to. Do the same the other side, and voila, we'll have an axle tube welded to the chassis. It's not going to go anywhere. Be good and strong, and then we can go with our swivels off the either end. Well, yeah. axle mounted, tube mounted rather, and then we've got that one hub that doesn't exist mounted, and we can steer and get maximum lock. Once the pedals are in place, this is technical, once the pedals are in place, our feet will have a good amount of space away from the wheel. We're also going to build a guard anyway, so that'll be good. Need those socks. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with how that looks. How that's sitting, it'll be plenty strong enough. That tube, it's thick wall tube as well, so that's going to be way strong enough. Obviously we've got no suspension, so when it does do a wheelie, which it will do a wheelie, it's going to come down hard on that. So we do want this end to be quite strong, and we'll probably gusset the chassis back as well, so that we don't end up with it being all bent, but that's pretty cool, isn't it? Come here then. Okay, so for the front hub, or for the swivel and basically mounting the front wheels, might be handy. I bought these unit bearings. Let's get it open. Alright, so that's a unit bearing. That's all one piece, self-sufficient unit bearing for a wheel with a 4-bolt pattern there. I literally just looked on eBay for useful looking things that had this bolt pattern, and just looked for one that had got a sort of useful looking end on this side. So we'll make up now something, essentially we need to create a knuckle or a swivel that's going to accept that unit bearing, so something we can bolt that to that then will swivel as well for the steering. So I just need to machine up something that's going to centre off that step there and then take the 4 bolt holes. Making up the swivel then that's going to take that bearing and hub assembly, I've got a bit of this heavy gauge steel, which we got from our friends at HEF, fabrication company local to us. They do forestry stuff, and basically what I'm thinking is, obviously the bearing unit will go on there. I'm going to machine the inside diameter to accept the spigot, if you like, that's on the bearing, and then we need 4 flats to weld something on so that we can bolt the bearing down. So the first port of action is to machine 4 flats onto that, so it's not quite square but roundy square, and that gives us 4 flat points then to machine to weld on something to bolt the bearing housing on. Okay, so there it is, machined into a squarey roundy bit. So those 4 flat spots are going to give me something then to somewhere to weld to, basically to weld some mounting points to pick up off the bearing unit. So the next step now is to machine a couple more flats. So I'm going to stick a flat here on this round and a flat here at the back, and then that will give me somewhere to drill for the swivels. So the swivel points top and bottom. That's the 2 additional flats, so that side there and then the side that's at the bottom machine. So now I'm just going to drill through the centre of there on both sides, tap it, and then that's going to give me somewhere to mount the swivels from. There we go then, both holes drilled. See down there, they just want tapping. We're getting somewhere. I'm going to now machine the inside diameter here because it's slightly undersized, so that it accepts that and centres it so that this step sits in there. So I'm going to chuck this on the lathe, machine it out and do that. That's the first step done then. So now we need to go on to this second step, which is 83mm. I need to machine that down more. Yes. Just got to machine that second step in there. So that goes in there now, and I just need on these flats to weld something that will pick up off these 4 bolts, and then I can actually bolt it to there, and we've got a swivel. That's my bearing. That's my swivel that's really warm still. I've got my 4 flats there like that, and what I'm hoping to do is basically weld on some tubes like that. I'll probably cut these down in half because they don't need to be that long. But these are M12 diameter steel tubes, so I'll cut them down and then I can stick a bolt through, weld these to this, and then stick a cap head bolt down into the threads that are already on the swivel, on the unit bearing. And then that'll bolt that all together. Got my 2 M12 tapped holes here. That'll be the top and bottom swivels. And then I'll show you what I'm going to do with them in a minute. Just turn down the ends of the bolts, which are really warm now. Just turn the ends down like that, just so they're giving me a bit more clearance when we assemble this, because it's quite tight. So assembling it then, I can basically, I've got my flats there on the swivel piece, and now I've ground those flats onto them, and I can just assemble it like that, flat to flat. I can then put the bolts in and bolt it all down like that, and then all I need to do is weld these to the swivel, which is done. That's the little luggy duggy. Have you got the little luggy duggy, mate? Oh no, I got him. Nice. Alright, all bolted in nice and tight, and that's got it. It's actually wedged it in there, which is nice, which means something's right. So I'm going to drop that in the vise, and I'm basically just now going to weld these to that. Guys. Sweet. I'm just going to weld that up then. Should be done. Again. So you can see, welded little stubs on, and she's nice and warm. So in that orientation now, we've got the threaded bits top and bottom. So if that was on the axle, top and bottom, those are the swivels, which we'll get onto now. Swivels then. So done the top and bottom threads because she'll sit like that, and then from yet again the scrap, well not scrap but just the parts bin of stuff we don't use. I've got these rose joints, which are from a Can-Am, obviously, like everything else we've got. Another one there with the spacers, and I'm going to use those as the top and bottom ball joints, so we can bolt them in now like that, and then bolt that down, and then that's our top ball joint. Then same on the bottom, and then all we need to do is bolt these to the axle and it'll work. They only really need to move in that direction. They don't need to move up and down because obviously it's not got suspension. So I guess they do a kind of a little bit, but for Ackerman and stuff, but that'll be pretty good. So now I need to connect this to the end of the axle tube. To get that onto the axle tube, we now need somewhere to weld it to. So what we've done on the other side is just cut a piece of box section, an equal length box section, and then tacked it on there like that. So I'm going to do the same sort of thing. It means we can bolt this on, and then once it's on we can sort of shape it and then gusset it back to the tube as well, so it's nice and strong. But that'll be the easiest way of doing it.
Found some.
Yes. $200 minus 145 is so marked up the centres. There's actually already holding this one, which is bonus. Mark that end as well. So I'm going to drill them through for the two rose joints, and then we can bolt that on and then look at getting it tacked on as well. Let's do it. That one's already got a nut in it, so I'm going to chuck a nut on this one. New nuts, not scrap nuts for a change. So I'm roughly just going to put them towards the end actually, somewhere here, so we've got a bit of space. And basically we can do that and that. I'll nip these up here then, not that it matters right now, but we'll nip them. They're threaded so we can adjust our camber, because you know that matters on a lawnmower. Okay, so then swivelly, that's our steering swivel. So now all we've got to do is weld that end onto there, and that is an axle. In theory. It's like a bloody assault course. A minute. Bolt this into the wheel. Now I've got to weld that on there, and bolt this into the wheel, and that'll help hold it up whilst I line it and everything to try and weld it in, and just make my life easy because that's quite heavy. There we go, so I can sort of just play around with that now and lift the wheel up and down to get it where I want it, so I can tack her in. Got my top of the tube mark, which is there, centre line which is there. So I'm just going to stick a tack on that and then double check it all. Guys, squareness is actually bang on. What are the odds of that? Which is good. Right. So that's tacked on now, same as the other side. There. And she's all tightened up, which it's not because that top swivels, that top joint's loose. But then we've got steering. Hopefully it never ends up like that. Look. That's cool, surely. So front end will carry its own weight now. She's not fucking right. That's the worst that could happen. Jesus Christ. Give myself a hernia. There we go, it's carrying its own weight again now. That's all tacked in. We're gonna, obviously everything needs fully welding up anyway, but we're gonna tidy up these pieces of box section and then also brace back to the actual tube. And then the tube's just been tacked in there, but there's a good chance that we'll rake it back to get proper half decent steering geometry. And then, like I say, if we wanted to, we could even adjust these joints and get camber and all that good stuff that you really don't need on a lawnmower. I am on with making the axle shafts of the rear axle. Changed my mind slightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut, we need this bit of spline section here to go into the hub, like that carries the bearing and everything. But we don't need this CV bit. We were just going to use the rest of that just for ease. But to make it even better, I'm going to cut the spline section off there, do away with the CV section, machine that end down so that it will go inside some tube, and then I'm going to put the tube, I'm going to cut this tube the right length, which will now have the spline section welded in it, and then weld it to the existing gearbox shaft and essentially have a new half shaft with the right spline on this end for the hub that mates to the existing gearbox. So I'm on with that now. Alright, so I've machined that off there, off of one of these, another one of these, and cut it off like that, and then I've machined the end down in the lathe so that it fits in here. So that's, I'll be able to tap that into there now. So this is a bit of tube that I've cut to the right length, and I've just chamfered either end, and I've machined the inside just a tiny bit so that that fits in there really snug, and then I can weld those two pieces together. I've also machined the other end so that it fits really snugly on there like that, and then we can put all that together, weld her all up, and we've got a half shaft that will be good and strong, is compact without the CV end, and nice and straightforward. Right, so I've welded that on to the end of the shaft, and then I've just machined it down so that it fits inside there because the shaft size is slightly bigger. So it goes all the way in, pushes on nicely like that. It means then we can get the standard nut on, and we've got a half shaft. So that fits on there nicely, super snug. I'll probably drill a couple of holes in it first so that I can plug weld it and then weld all the way around there, and then that will be a half shaft. Oh, it's that snug. So I'm looking at doing the arm that's going to come up off of the main steering shaft. But basically we'll have an arm coming up off of here that then will move like that as you steer to push wheels. We need like a quadrant on there to then weld to. So I found this big nut which is just undersize. So this is 20mm round bar, and that's not quite the right size. So I'm going to machine that thread out so that it is. And then because it's got nice flats on it, because it's a nut, I'm going to drill in the middle of there, tap it, and then I can put a grub screw on, which will then hold it on the arm. And then we've got something to weld an arm to. So I'm going to chuck this on the lathe and make it fit this. I've machined the threads out of that, so that's 20mm now, and I could show you, but the bar's over there. And then I've also drilled and tapped it as well, so it'll accept a grub screw, so that'll go on the shaft. Then a grub screw will go in there, tighten up and keep it on the shaft. And we can drill the shaft as well so that the grub screw can go into the shaft as well. So that's that, and then I need an arm to come off of that. So good old scrap pin stuff, I found this, which is perfect, which will go on there, probably go on the opposite side from the bolt. Go on there like that, so I can weld that on. So that'll go on the shaft, and then as you steer, that'll rock over. So I'm on with that, and then I'll get that on the shaft. Nice. Nice.
So needed to make some steering arms for the tie rods to connect to. So what I've done is cut the ends off of a anti-roll bar that we had in the scrap, and they've already got the holes drilled in them, which is nice. Clean them up, and then the idea is that they can just weld on there, and then we'll have the tie rods go to the centre to whatever Shabs was making.
Right, Harry's on with the steering arms, so I'm going to make up some tie rods. So I'll go from the arms at the wheel end to the column end, if you like. So I've got two Can-Am radius rods here out of the scrap bin. This is a factory one which has these sort of seal joints on, and then this is an aftermarket one that's steel that has rose joints on, and the ends are threaded. So I'm going to steal the threaded ends off of this tube, cut this in half or thereabouts, and put the threaded ends into the cut end with some other joints, and then that will give us adjustable track rods so that we can change the toe in and toe out and stuff. So I just need to cut these bits up and weld them back together again. The tie rods need to be about 340mm long eye to eye, so I'm going to cut these down just under, which means I can add in that joint, and then we can adjust it to suit. So I'm going to cut these up first. So 340 is about there, that's where I want my other eye, but then I'm going to give myself some joint extra. So about there, which means I want to cut about here. Two tie rods.
Christ. That worked good, didn't it? I'm just machining up the threaded end that I've stolen out of that old rod, so that I can fit it into the other old rod and make a new rod. So I've got my threaded bung out of the one side, that's what I wanted, just purely for those threads, and then we can put a new joint in it, and then that'll go in there and weld up, and then you just thread the joint in. Probably good. Nice. And again, just need to chuck a joint in it. Do you want to find the 18 ratchets on it? Otherwise it'll be fucking ever. Got to make one the other side now. Can't see anything. More steam there. So dicking about with the steering still. My favourite job. I'm on with mounting a pillow block bearing, which will hold the end of the front of the steering shaft, column, whatever you want to call it, that the drop arm goes onto. And then Harry's over there just drilling the steering arms because we're moving the position of where they are, just to try and get it more compact and everything. So yeah, just chipping away. Like that. And I can bolt that in. And I've got a bit of adjustment on it as well because I've slotted the holes so that we can get it right, get it in the right place so it doesn't bind the shaft. And that'll hold that end. Just got to bolt it up and put it in there. I've just got my piece of steel in there now, my piece of angle iron on the front, which has that bearing carrier on the end. So that shaft now is fully supported. I've got a bit of shaft sticking out the end for the quadrant there, which just goes on with the grub screw. And we're just doing a few little bits so that we can get this tested now. Yeah, get into that grub screw on the bottom to tighten it.
You have to drill a hole.
Yeah. Finger this way.
From centre then.
Oh, finger! Oh, it's not long enough now. This one was prepared earlier. Right, full lock that way. Yeah, stop there, I'd say. Almost full lock that way as well, isn't it? Yeah, I think if it goes past the centre. Go full lock that way. Well, I don't want to go any more than that.
Yeah.
Let's tack this in properly then, the axle. And then we can put it on the floor and then actually feel it.
Yeah.
It's not too bad. Yeah, it's not too bad actually. Let's get the other side done then. And feel it again. Because we are on the floor here, aren't we? So that is all of its weight.
rock solid. Just try and turn it manually.
Okay, do you want to go?
Anyway.
Not too bad. But
Wow, way too fucking hard that is.
it's going to be better if it's moving.
It will be better if it's moving, but you still need to move it around the pits and stuff, don't you?
So what's the answer?
Start again.
It's not much.
Everything's fucking flexing down here though, the amount of...
If we make the quadrant in the middle, if we make a better one of those that's longer, that's going to give us more leverage, isn't it?
No,
Why not?
because you're still turning from the centre, aren't you? You know what, you need a bigger steering wheel.
Alright, guess what you've got to do now, Harry?
What?
You know the answer. You're going to drill 2 more holes. A bit further up the fucking bars.
And in next week's episode...
Yeah, that's fucking shitloads better than it was. I think we'll make a longer quadrant in the middle there.
What, taller?
Yeah. What? But that's shitloads better than it was. So, in the end, I made the nut that I drilled out for a grub screw, and it wasn't brilliant, so I sacked that off and just bought these shaft collars, they're called, which is exactly the same thing as what I was trying to make, so with the grub screw in it and everything. So I've stuck one on the shaft here, tightened it up, then taken it off, it's left a mark on the shaft, which I've then drilled into the shaft, a couple of mil, and then when I wind the grub screw in, it locates it, so it's not going to move anyway. So we've got the shaft collar on there, tie rods are made up, quadrant's made up, so all I'm going to do now is I've got this like loosely bolted together. Right, is I'm going to get where I want the tie rod arms to sit and where I'm happy with them, and then from that shaft collar I'm going to weld this bit of tube to the shaft collar and then land the quadrant on top of there and weld that and get it all right and square and everything and make sure I'm happy with it, tack it all together, try the steering, make sure it works this time. And we should be good. Like that. It's nice and easy to steer, that is. It's just we need to get that's full lock there. Yep. Too far? Yeah. Yeah. Go on, go a bit more. Hold on, go a bit more. Whoa. Bless. There. Bless a bit more. Bless a bit more. Go on, go again. No, they keep going the direction. Whoa. I'm just looking at which one they need to steer together, do you know what I mean? I think that's terrible. Yeah. Sweet. Just got to brace that all up. Make it good and strong. We're cooking. So you'll have to come here then. So we just got all that done and then bolted up and found that the steering was nice and light, but there wasn't so much steering lock. So if you saw, we had 2 sets of holes in this quadrant plate. So we just moved it up to the next set of holes. Which has given us more steering lock, but it is a bit harder to steer, but still perfectly fine. So we're going to run it at that. I'm going to cut off this tube and weld her all up, and we're about there, I reckon. Beautiful. Eyes is. She's a beaut. Good day. Yeah, and then I'm gonna put like a gusset in there, and that'll just stop that from flexing. Can I have my helmet back? Cheers, my dears.
waiting all the grinding to start here. Which I don't need to, it's completely pointless, but I'm doing it because I think it's going to be funny. To be honest, I thought it'd be more extreme than that, but it's fine. Don't need what's it?
You've got a hard stop now?
Yep.
What's it stopping?
On the swivel.
Are you sure it's not a welding thing?
No, I can see it myself with my eyes.
Yeah, it's hitting down
In actually the place it was probably good to go. We're going to have rear brakes only as well, so it's just going to be turned into a corner, stamp on the brake.
and then carry on going straight.
Yeah, and keep going straight. I think we've got enough Ackerman there, what do you reckon? Yeah, pleased with that, it's not heavy. Bearing in mind we're doing it on concrete. We'll be in mud as well, so, and dirt and stuff, it's going to be loads easier. Happy with that? Second time lucky. Pow. So with the steering done now, the front end's basically done. We've just got to chuck in a few gussets in places and then weld it all up, but we'll do the weld up at the end. But yeah, we're going to throw a few gussets in, nothing worth videoing and showing you, because it's just a few little bits of plate. But this end's done, which means we can focus again on the rear end now. We've got all the bits to do that with, and then she'll be properly on the wheels again. Probably look all emotional. It's allergies. On the rear end then, getting this back on it, or on its wheels on the rear end, I'm going to mount this bearing, which is the wheel bearing. It's a standard Can-Am wheel bearing, and we need to create axle tubes to carry the hubs and everything. So I'm going to mount this wheel bearing in this piece of tube, which eventually will be the axle casing. So I'm going to cut it to length, and then I've got these couple of plasma cut rings, which will carry the bearing inside the tube because the tube's a bigger diameter. So I'm going to machine these up so they'll carry it, and then I'm also going to drill them so they take bolts to retain the bearing so the bearing doesn't come out, and then weld them in there and then put the bearing in, and then the tube will be the right length and we'll be able to put it onto the lawnmower. So I've got to chuck these in the lathe, make them, and then fit. I forgot to mention we got these plasma cut bits with some other bits from before from HEF, Howell Evans Fabrication, who are like a forestry company just up the road for us that have helped us out with bits and bobs like this. So this piece, I'm machining a step like halfway into it. So at the minute it's undersized for the OD of the bearing. So I'm machining it out, putting a step in, and then the bearing will sit in there and it won't go any further than that step. And then when this is in the back of the tube, that'll be the backstop for the bearing. So getting on with building the rear axle now. So we've had this plate made up that we are going to bolt to the back of the rear gearbox, and then the idea is to weld the tube, the axle tube, to this. So what I'm going to do is cut out, there's some flanges on here that are in the way, so I'm going to cut them out and grind that flat, grind part of the chassis that we've extended on the rear, drill holes for this, and then it should bolt on. And then we have a adapter, well, a little tool here that we've CAD designed and then 3D printed, so that will slide over the existing axle shaft when it wants to. And then once I've cut the flanges off, this should push up against the gearbox, and we can use this to align the flange plate that we've made. So that'll align over the top of it and then allow me to mark and then drill the holes for it to mount to.
Done the machining on this then, so that's what I meant. So we've got a backstop here where the bearing won't push past, it physically cannot go past, but on the front it can, so we can get the bearing in and out. I've then also drilled and tapped these two holes to put bolts in that will keep the bearing from coming out. Now I've just got to drop them into there and then weld them into the tube, and then that will carry the bearing, and then cut the tube to length as well. The bearings in the end of the tube there, like that, all I've done is tap that in, so that whole assembly's just been tapped in. I'm now going to weld around there, and that'll keep that outer piece of steel in, and then obviously there's the backstop, so I'm going to take the bearing out and then I'll be able to go in there and weld that in. And then you can see the two threaded holes. If I wind in a bolt in there now, the bearing's not going to be able to get out, and that's a nice simple way of doing it. In the Can-Ams they come with an internal circlip. But I'm not a massive fan of that, to be honest with you. It is a problem as well with racing, so we changed that on the race course, so the 2 bolts for the lawnmower will be perfect. So I've just tapped that in there like that, covering the bearing. So I'm going to pull the bearing out now. Do the same on the inner backstop and then weld it all up. Just wipe my nose. Just welded that up now. I'm just going to flap disc the top just so it doesn't interfere with the hub and everything when it goes on. And we're done. We're going to put that on over there. Okay, now that's all welded in, then I'm going to cut this tube to length. And then that will be our axle tubing all done. So that's axle casing cut to size now. Just got to make this bit fit that bit now. With that all done now, the hub, the Can-Am hub, will sit inside the Can-Am wheel bearing, and that is an axle tube waiting to go onto a gearbox.
I've ground the flanges off of the rear gearbox now so that the flange plate that we have will fit better. The only issue that I do have is that the filler bolt, the plug for the oil for the rear gearbox, is in the way. So I've just marked it up on here, and then I'm going to cut the corner out. It does mean that we're going to lose a bolt hole, but we should be alright with that. Be alright. Actually fits on. I have, what have I done? I've finished adapting the flange plate now. I've had to cut the corner out down here for the filler, oil filler, and then grind at the back of it slightly just to get round the oil seal for the shaft, for the actual drive shaft that comes out of it. We've used the 3D printed plate adapter tool that we made to align the flange plate on the gearbox, and then this is in the correct position now for me to now mark it up, ready for the holes to be drilled. He's domesticated now. Check whether these actually line up. I have finished drilling all the holes in the gearbox now for the flange plate to mount to. They are all tapped to M10 so that we can put bolts and washers. And I'm just going to bolt this up, and then we're going to look at welding the axle shaft that Shabs has made up to the flange plate. Yep, that'll do. It's not coming off, so. No, I was just going for the keyway because that's what we did on the other side, but the keyway's like there, so.
Right, Harry's done all those bits then, so we've got a flange on there now to mount an axle tube to. So all we've got to do is slot that on, and that will align in there because that's the same diameter. And now that we've got a bearing on this side and the shaft, if we just assemble it, that's got everything in line now, so we know that that's all square. All we need to do now is stitch that on there, or fully weld it, but we'll tack it on for now. And we're good.
We put a glove on first actually before I burn my hand.
So axle case is on, and yes, I did say so. So with that welded up now, the tube that I made and the flange that Harry has bolted on is one piece. So we could unbolt that now and it would come off completely. But that's given us an axle tube. So we've done the same on the other side, as you know, or as you do now, you probably saw. And now that means that we can literally bolt the wheel on, put the mower on the floor, and it's actually on its four wheels and usable, or in the sense that we can roll it around. I need to put some air in this. Oh, like a glove. I need the Oogie Doogie.
We're just going to roll it forward off the wood.
Yes, I can do, mate, yeah.
If it'll go.
Is it? It's not on that. Boom. It's alive! Oh, peg it. This is how men do cleaning shit. And then we're going to throw the vacuum in the river. Set fire to it. Look at that. It's fine, we just need some drive now with my cooking. That's pretty good. Push me all of 3 meters, Harry. Oh, it's like turning a bus. I'm well impressed with that. happy it's down on its wheels now. That's turning through the gearbox as well, because it's in gear, isn't it? It's not in neutral.
So where's the...
Sticks over there. And then I'd got it pushed that way. Like, if this put stick like that to me.
Stick to you?
Yeah, no, put it in. That's it, that's it. And that should be neutral now.
Yeah. No, it's still driving though.
You sure?
Yeah.
Changing gear, that's going to be a lot.
Yeah. You're going to have a second seat.
Still driving that, isn't it?
No, it's not. That's neutral.
Right. Got better. It's better than it was.
It's going to do wheelies. Wheelies. Pretty heavy. I'm well happy about that. If the race car wasn't in the way, we could push it outside, break it. I mean, try it. Happy days. All right, I'm on now then with doing the other end of the brake, so I'm going to look at actually getting a pedal, so we've got some brakes, which means mounting master cylinder. This is one we've got on the shelf. Brake King. So I've got to mount this on the pedal, so that when you push the pedal, it pushes the master cylinder in and sends fluid to the brake calipers. I'm also going to have to put a reservoir somewhere as well. So this is the brake pedal. I want to use the original brake pedal if I can, just because it's cool. So I'm thinking if I can mount that down there somewhere and then run a clevis off of the end of the push rod to the pedal that will push the push rod in, then that should work in theory. So I'm going to look at mounting the master cylinder to the chassis here somewhere, like that, and then obviously hooking it to the brake pedal so that when you push that in, it does what it needs to do. I need to make up a plate that's going to go into, and then 2 bolts. I'm going to bolt it on, which I've already done just by magic, which took ages to do for 3 little holes. So I've done that. So then that goes on there, like so, and then I can bolt that to there, and then we can weld that plate now onto the chassis, and then with a bit of adjustments I can get a push rod clevis onto the pedal and get that working. So I'm going to clean this up, tack it in place, find a clevis or some way of fixing this together, and then see what I can make of it. Ow, ow. Ow, 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 ow. Ow. It's still hot. I need to position this pedal because at the minute it floats on the shaft. But once we've got it positioned, which is about there somewhere, it actually brakes really well, operates really well. And all I've done is welded a bolt to a nut to be able to get the push rod to do what it needs to do. That's bolted up there, that's just tacked in place, but in terms of position and height and everything, that's roughly where I wanted the pedal, and now it'll operate. So all we've got to do is plumb from here to the rear calipers, and then probably bolt a reservoir up here somewhere and then down so that we get fluid in and fluid out. And that should work. I'm going to leave it like that before bolting up everything and welding it all right, just to make sure it works. This master might not be the right master for it, might want a different size. I think this is a 5/8 master, so 5/8 bore. So we'll try this. I'll get that in position as well where I want it. And we'll see how that goes. Stop, stop, go! I'm now looking at doing the shifter. So this is a sequential gearbox, so in a motorbike you shift with your foot, and it's sequential. We need a shifter up to grab with your hand, because obviously your feet are going to be busy with the pedals, but there's a lot of stuff to navigate, so I'm just welding on a bit of tube here that will then give me something to come off of. But I've got to navigate a chain housing there, a leg there, and then everything else that's in the way. So it's going to be a bit of a funny one. I think it might be a bit of a shaped shifter to actually work there, but I'm starting with that. That gives me something to work from then.
So what movement does that have to have on it?
Well, this?
Yes.
So it rotates like that, not much. uniform. So that's selecting each different gear. So it's not much movement. So by the time it's up here, it'll be quite a lot more because of the leverage. But yeah, it's not a massive amount of throttle that's got to move. Just need to put a stick on it now. Put your foot up here, so your heel's on that round bit there. Bit higher up. Yeah. So I need to come as close as I can to the casing, but out of the way of your foot.
Just gonna have to.
It's going to be about here.
Dog leg out.
Yeah. Just keep welding tools together. Nice.
Oh, that's going to be an issue, I think, with your leg. Maybe not.
How's the back not hit your legs?
Smaller.
So I've mocked that up just with some bar. I just want to get the position of it, get it working and get the position of it. The shifter's also going to have a hand clutch on it as well, because there was no nice way of doing it on your feet, and I wanted the feet to be left foot brake, right foot throttle like a go-kart. I didn't want two pedals on this side and then a clutch pedal on this side like a car. So this is going to have a hand clutch on it, and because it's a dog box anyway, you can shift without a clutch anyway, so that'll be fine. Got that shifting okay, I'm happy with that, so I think I'm going to work with that. Obviously I'll need to cut down this tube here, ow, that's hot, to clear your foot, and then I'll make this up nicely and then make a proper shifter with the hand clutch on it as well, which is going to be awkward because you're going to have a pipe running all the way down there, which is fine to be fair, because that's the clutch slave cylinder, so it might run, the pipe might run down here and then literally kink back up, and there should be enough movement in it to accommodate that, so that works out alright. Just thinking out loud.
What about clearance to your leg?
So clearance to my leg is okay. It's limited anyway, but I'm sat back in the position I'd be sat in, and it's close to my leg to be fair. I suppose I could crank it again at the other end. Maybe have a look at that and just put a little crank in it here so it brings it away from my leg, but then back in for the hand up here. Position wise, where the hand is not too bad. It's just a lot of throw, but there's no way around that because how far away the pivot point is. And it's just kind of the nature of the compromise we're making by putting a motorbike engine in a lawnmower. So it's suboptimal, but I think it'll work. Just put a crank, another bend in the shaft just a bit further down so that it brings you away from your leg. I think that will work just fine. Still a ton of throw, which I'm never going to get away from. It's just the nature of the shifter on the gearbox of the bike engine. But that should work. Just got to make a nice version of that now. So we're looking at the chain, doing the chain, or the first part of the chain to get drive to the rear axle. So we're going to run the chain from the output of the engine and gearbox, and we've got to get to the back axle, but the input to the axle is on the other side where Harry is. So we're going to run a chain like that through a centre bearing here, or an idler shaft, and then run a second chain down that side. I'm just doing the centre bearing setup, which is on 2 pillar blocks, which is like a bearing in a housing that you can bolt on. And then I've got this shaft here, which is this 20mm EN24 shaft that I'll be able to put a sprocket on. So I'm just bolting that in place now, and then we'll be able to get the sprockets, put the sprockets on, and then put a chain on and tension it. So I'm just putting this together now with a few nuts and bolts so that we can do that. Just shortening the chain. So we don't want it that long, we want it that long. That's hot. Harry's got his best Chinesian chain tool. one link less. For the sprockets, we've got the factory Honda sprocket there that goes onto the engine and gearbox. And then we bought like a stock 530 chain sprocket and then used a shaft collar that's the same diameter as that, and then welded them together like so, which means that that'll push on there now and we'll be able to locate that and bolt it down. And then now we can run a chain onto that. So we've got a piece of chain now that we've put to size just by taking out some links, and then we've got it in place, but it's still really slack, which means we need to tension it. We can't take any more links out of it because that'll make it odd and then it won't fit together. So we just need to be able to move this centre shaft now away from the engine and gearbox to be able to tension it and just rotate it basically to get this a bit tighter. Okay, so with a bit of messing around, quite a bit of messing around, we've got the chain made up with a quick link, and then the bearing and shaft are mounted. That's the original from there, and then this is the one that we've made up, and it should all just go together nicely, he says. There we go. That goes on there as it did, and that goes on there now, and with the pillow block tensioned, we've got a good chain there. The only thing we've got to do now is space it away so that that's running true, so that this sprocket is running in the same line as this, so it's not twisted like that. But we're going to do the other side and then we can do it together sort of thing. So yeah, we're going to jump on the other side now. Okay, so on this side we've got the intermediate shaft that we've just done, so we need a sprocket on there and we need to run a chain all the way back here to this shaft here, which is the input for the gearbox. So we need a second sprocket on there and then a chain to join them up. We've got one sprocket there that's exactly the same as the other side that's been made up and welded. So that can go on there and that's good. And then we've got another one that will do the same thing as we've done here on there. The only problem is this is a non-metric 3/4 inch shaft and these are 20mm. So I have to order one of these seal collars to weld onto it that's the non-metric size. So we can't do that just yet, which is fine because I've got the chain as well. It's quite a long chain obviously, so I've already put a join in this to make it long enough. The chain that I'd bought was too short, which I knew, so I've added in an extra bit of chain here using the quick link. I just now need another quick link to join this up where I'm going to join it up for the length. So at the minute I can't really progress on that because I'm waiting for the shaft collar and the quick link, but when they come it'll be pretty straightforward. Oh, we'll have to put a tensioner in it as well. So on the other chain we can tension it by moving this shaft. If we move this shaft now it'll mess up that side and we can't move the gearbox, so that's got to stay where it is, that's got to stay where it is, and we've got to take tension out. So we'll do that with a third chain tensioner that will bolt on somewhere. That should work, so I'm going to order one of them as well.
I am working on mounting the brake disc and caliper for the rear axle. So we had some brake discs around and these will mount to the stock Can-Am calipers. And then we have some stock Can-Am brake calipers that I have made a template up for the mounting bracket, and that will allow me to mount them like so. Made the template. I'm going to trace that onto a piece of steel and then cut that out, which I've already done. So once I've cut that out, that'll allow me to mount the caliper on the rear axle.
Lovely.
just plumbing up the brakes now. I've started at the master cylinder. Let me show you. So I've started at the master cylinder that I mounted. I had a reservoir pot kicking about that I dug out, that I've literally just tacked up a washer here to mount it, so I can tighten that down on that nut. There's the reservoir, that drops straight into the master, which we know works. And then I've started plumbing back to the calipers. Obviously this only runs rear brakes like a go-kart and that sort of thing. I've run a main line all the way back to the rear axle, where there's a T-piece that will split it left and right. So I've already plumbed in that right hand side in there like that, giving myself extra hose so that I can route it nicely when we were all finished off. And we'll have little tabs and stuff that we'll tack on that we can cable tie it to. So I've just got to do this side, but annoyingly I've run out of the banjo fitting that goes on the caliper side, so I can't finish this off. I might stick the one end on ready, but I can't finish it off until I get another one of these. So, come here. I'll show you the kind of pipe and fittings we're using. It's all compression fittings, but it's all done with spanners, so you don't need special tooling to do it. It's called aero quip or moto quip, depending on who you use or who's made it, basically. But it's I know it as aero quip, and I've been using it for years. And it's a braided line that's got like a Teflon inner. So that's your Teflon inner. That's squashed in a minute. Obviously, it's supposed to be round. You got a Teflon inner and then a braid on the outside, and this particular one then has got protective plastic as well. But like I say, I've been using this for years, probably 20 years or more, and it's dead easy. I like it because you can make up custom pipes like you would a solid pipe. If you do have issues at a race and stuff like that, you can fix it. So if, which we've done a load of, to be fair, like if we have an issue at a race, a pipe gets cut or whatever might happen to rockets or whatever, we can literally cut it there, get two of these fittings, put a fitting on each end and then bolt them back together again. You've got an end fitting like that. You've got a little olive, like similar to like a water pipe olive type thing, crush olive. So you put that on first, then the olive goes in there between the braid and the Teflon, and then you screw whatever fitting you need in. So that end goes into the pipe and then screws into this like that. And then whatever fitting you've got on the end goes to wherever it needs to. This has got the protective stuff over the outside of the braid, and it comes in different colours and stuff, whereas this one's clear. So I'm just pulling that off out of the way, and that can get rid of that. I've taken off more than I need to. You only need to take off about that much. That end cap goes on first, and that just pushes over the whole thing. Because it's braided, it's a little bit fiddly. That goes all the way to the end. You don't need to push it all the way down there, you only need to get it off a little bit. Next up, I've got to open up the braid here, like that, which is always fun to do, your fingers, they're nice and pointy. But basically open it up enough so that this little olive piece, which is tapered, can go over the Teflon, but between the braid, so the braid goes over the outside of it and the Teflon goes on the inside of it. I like that, but it's not fully on, so in fact there's a bit of braid that's trying to go underneath it. There we go. And then you want to push that all the way to the end, so it's like fully home. And then you can sort of see the Teflon on the inside happy, and then this pushes down the inside of the Teflon, it's also really easy, like that. And then all I do is, because the braid's on the outside of the olive, as I push that up and then screw this into this, it clamps it down onto the Teflon and then the steel bit that's on the inside of this. So as that tightens, it's now compressing it, and then that's what seals it. The axle like that, up to there, and then we'll have a bit of extra to there. So I'm going to cut it off there, and I've just got to put my banjo end on there then. So after lots of cutting and grinding, I've cut the brake caliper bracket out of steel now. I'm just going to bolt that onto the brake caliper, just try to work out what angle to mount the caliper. We've already made another bracket and mounted the one on the other side, so we're just trying to work out the angle to make sure that they match. Yeah, we've just got to hook up the brake lines to this side, and they're already hooked up at the front, so we should be good to go.
Are you marking something now, or?
No, I'm just getting prepared to do it.
Right, this now says 271 dead, which is there.
Just weld it quick whilst I've got it.
Happy?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I've got 272 on my side and 271 on this side. So we're less
close enough.
Under 1 degree.
For an iPhone app, I think we'll be alright.
Yeah. There you go. So brakes are done. I got the end for this caliper, plumbed that in, put the reservoir up there and filled it with full of fluid, and everything didn't leak on the first time, which it did. Forgot to tighten that up, that didn't help, so that pissed fluid everywhere. And I forgot to tighten one on that end. But now we have brakes and it does work quite well. So quite pleased with that. Not loads of throw on there, which is good, and it locks up those wheels, which is mint. So that's done. I've not welded that bracket up yet, but there's no point until we get everything done. We'll weld it up in one go, so I'm not going to stamp on that because I'll probably rake it off. But everything tests and works fine, so that's good. I'm going to jump on doing some bits on the engine now and getting some bits bolted onto it, because it's basically the bare engine and box. So I've got the carbs to go on, there's a wiring loom, spark plugs and leads need to go in. There's this thermostat thing that I've got to find a place for. I might make a place up. Yeah, and basically just build it up so we can get it a bit close to getting it running.
How long do you want it?
Well, they like sit on there, don't they? So it only needs to be
20 mil.
Yeah, what's that depth on there? Just measure that depth.
Yeah, it's 10, so
Sweet. Nothing actually mounts this, it just sort of floats.
probably mounts on the frame somewhere, doesn't it?
No, it's got no mounting points on it. Right, so if I do that there like that, and then I can go pipe out to rad, pipe out to rad. I have got this thermostat housing, which is the bike one, and it's like a remote one, so it just sort of floats in no man's land. So I'm just piping that up because there's a couple of sensors on here that are probably important for stuff. I'm getting that mounted in there with some pipe work, and then Harry's on with getting the carbs fitted, which go up here, but we're missing the little rubber connectors there, so he's just making some out of some silicone hose. Nice.
Around
So that the choke cable's on your side. Cooling system. Back on this side then, getting the engine bits a bit closer. I had to order a few little bits and bobs. The last thing we're waiting for is a starter relay, which goes on there. Harry's been messing with this wiring and figured it all out, which is good. So that's the last thing we need to connect up, I think, and an earth there, and then the actual HT leads, which are there. And then everything's wired up. We've got it all figured out. We're going to do a little switch panel on the dash with this little thing that I found on the shelf. So we'll have a nice little push button start for that, and then a couple of other switches for like the little lights and stuff. So that's a bonus. We'll chuck them on later. Next jobs then really now, while we wait for the last bits to come for this, is finish off the cooling. I've got that thermostat mounted, which means we've got a top hose and a bottom hose here. So we need to chuck a radiator in, which Harry's working on. There's also a little oil cooler to go on as well, which just picks up off a couple of ports on the engine, which we'll mount at the front with the radiator as well. We're getting there. Okay, next thing I want to look at as well is the bonnet. Don't know if I showed you, but I've got the front mounted on some hinges. So that tilts forward there like that, like it would have originally. So I've mounted that, but obviously it won't close because there's an engine in the way. So we need to cut the top of the bonnet out to accommodate that. And I want to cut out as little as possible so it keeps its shape and so it still looks like a wheel horse. So I've marked out in the white mark there, that's hashed out, what I think to be the minimum amount of metal that I need to take out just to clear, really just to clear the carbs, and then everything else should fit under it and it should come level, and then we can mount it. I'll probably mount it off the engine mount here and here to keep it latch closed, because obviously it doesn't go all the way back to where it used to live before. So that's the next task. Chappy chap chap. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. It's like a thing that's supposed to be really dangerous. Yeah, I just need to bend that front one out a bit more. Then we'll have the filters coming out of there. We did have another idea for that, but I won't say what it is because we don't know if it'll work. Right, so it's just that one there, that's the problem. Safety third. Some dickheads cut all this dead sharp. So still tweaking a little bit. I've just got to pull these this way a touch because it's just fouling on that one carb, and I want it to come down just a bit more, just so it's level basically, and it's not quite there yet. So put the grinder out again. I think that'll do. Down on the head there, so it's not going to go any further there, past the carbs and clear on all sides. Yeah, it looks good. That was Harry's idea, I just stole it. Just need to mount this end now to keep it there.
Like the footwear for the tyre.
Get this side. Can't get back far enough to get the whole vehicle in. I'm in the shelving. Can you reach the pedal all right and everything?
My legs are a little bit short. If my bum's in the back,
Yeah.
my foot's not quite had a little.
Need a little booster seat. What about the shifter? Too far away, short little arms. Does look cool.
So I have been working on the radiator, the cooling system for the mower. What we had originally was a horizontally mounted radiator that we've rotated, cut the original return pipe off and flipped the angle on that, and then cut the filler port off of another radiator that we had, and so that rather than having a header tank, we're just going to use the radiator as the header tank as such. Welded a piece of aluminium angle onto the bottom of it, and then that should mount in here. So just going to drill some holes and bolt it to the frame, and then that will sit like that in front of the engine. We've still got enough room in front for a fan.
Loads.
I just think that's, if there's enough clearance where the top hose would go, then yeah.
Yep.
Harrison, we bolt that on there, like that, and then twist it around to meet the sides. That would work.
Too much enthusiasm.
Yeah, so let's do that. Yeah, I'll cut that off. Cut that off, drill them out, bolt that on.
Yeah.
We'll wheel this over to the TIG welder and then we can put that together.
Yep.
Bish bash bosh. Will it reach? Yes. that focus. That way and then back it. Look at it, look at it! Look, awesome, not gonna lie. It's just taken in. It literally is the size of the cannon. Just doing my bit. Took me, what, you got one there with the rubber and one without? Yeah, brilliant.
Can't get that one in.
Yeah, some hands.
What's the idea behind that piece you're putting on?
So what we've done is taken the 2 bolts out of the valve cover, drilled 2 holes in this plate here to mount it to the engine, and then we're going to bend them in and weld them to the radiator just to add a bit of support to the top. I wanted like a nice neat 90-degree bend, but it's kind of just gone for whatever it felt like. Like that, do you think?
Yep, that'll do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chassis might slightly long. Brakes work. We're going to do a skid, Harry. Go on. Go on. Done very well.
So I've been working on building the dashboard and control sort of panel for the mower. So what I did was this was the original one, which obviously had no buttons and a single light. So I've unbolted that from there, taking it off, and then just using a piece of flat stainless, cut this out so that it will fit in here. That's just like a production made control panel that we've just used for ease basically. It's got switches, it's got lights on it, the wiring's already in the back, and it was free. Cut the space out for that, I've bolted that in, put 2 LEDs up here that we're going to use for a neutral. So there is a neutral safety switch on this that we bypass, but we're going to use a light to show that it's in neutral. And then there will be another LED here that will show that we've got oil pressure, just to make sure that we've got it whilst the engine's running. The idea is that that'll bolt in there, and then it being at a better angle, so whilst you're sitting in the seat you can still see the LEDs and the controls rather than it being more vertical in the original position. Read this.
And then ask Google.
Yes.
I'm doing a bit of pipe work now, so Harry got that rad mounted in there. Did we show you that? I can't remember.
Yes.
There's a rad mounted there. I'm just piping that up now using some old pipe that we've got and some old hose that we've got, because I don't want to spend any more money on this silly project.
Contemplating my life choices. Just trying to work out somewhere sensible to mount all of this.
It's too hot. It's too hot for wrestling hose pipes. Done.
We need to put all of that under there.
Yep.
So do I drill a hole in here and run everything over the bottom, or should I drill a hole there and run it into the top and then it can go down? Because obviously that other dash bit's going to sit like that.
Oh yeah.
We'll put the battery in there, that fuse box somewhere.
Fuse box can poke.
And then the ignition relay.
Which way is going to be easier, through here?
I think so.
Yeah, just do it through there then.
Because most of it's over the top anyway, isn't it? Right.
That would be a big hole to feed all that shit through though.
Well,
all those
phones.
plugs. Do you know what I mean? They're quite big, like that one there, look.
Yeah, if I go through sideways like that.
Still got to be a good size hole, isn't it? I think that's all plumbed up. I can chuck in some water now and see from where it leaks, because it will. Probably everywhere. Pipework's all in now, plumbed up. So top hose goes to top hose of rad, bottom to bottom, and then there's all these little bits and bobs here that go through to the heads and stuff. The only stuff we've got now are breathers, crankcase breathers, and fuel line. I've got to put in the fuel line. But I'm going to stick some water in here first, make sure that's all fine and that nowhere's leaking, which it will be, obviously. You can guarantee it. So we'll get some water in here, clean up all the mess, and then try and fix where it leaks from. Won't spill a drop. Apart from that bit. And that.
Oh, it's leaking from down here.
Oh yeah, that's pretty substantial. Told you it's going to leak, didn't I?
Oh, it's leaking from here.
It's like a Golf. Look, this is why I cut the bonnet out. So I'm just gonna, we've got an engine oil cooler that's got to go on, that's got to be piped up, so I'm just welding on a bit of aluminum so that I can make a bracket and bolt it down to the chassis. So I'm just going to TIG weld this on here somewhere, and then we can drill some holes in it. I need more hands. Can you do me a favour please, Pumpkin? Can you hold this? I just need to hold that there like that. Don't touch the metal. Boys. That's fun to weld. All the oil and grime and 20 some odd years of crap that's in the aluminium. I am digging through a box of random fittings, old fittings and stuff that we've got for fittings for this fuel tank that we're going to use. So I think they were M22 or something, or M20. So I'm just looking to see what I've got. We'll need a filler that can go there, and then a fuel out to the engine. I don't think these have a return, so that's all we need. We only need a couple, and then probably a bung for the other side. That's all I can find. I don't got what I need. So we've got it all rigged up with the original fuel tank precariously balanced on a table saw and with a ratchet strap around it, and then we've got a couple of batteries down there that are just sort of jumped together, and then lots and lots of cables. A little switch panel, but the push button switch doesn't work, we found out, so I'm just touching the cables together because that does the same thing. That'll be perfectly safe.
Yeah. So it's definitely a fueling issue. So it's over fueling. I wouldn't say it's over fueling. No, because it's adding fuel in it, and it's fired. So yeah, but it'll probably be less with that than what that's put in. I think him spraying it directly into the cylinder is more than it will inject in there. So if we open the fuel line back up, and then he sprays a little bit into the car, and then see if it will start. Because if it starts, it might just pull more through. Yeah. Firing. All right, so needs more fuel. Yeah, we're fueling this year, isn't it? Yeah, we'll put that up higher. So if you want that,
and spray fuel then.
Just hold it over there, just so your face anyway.
What are you doing? When the water moves, it shakes. There's water in there.
Ready, have it? Oh, that's that. Yeah. 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 Firing.
You might not be firing fast enough, you know, as well.
Yeah. Firing. want to clean that spark plug that was on that side?
So you did like brush it, didn't you?
Yeah, but it was really black when we took it back out.
Alright. You can take it out and just check it's sparking. It's on a bit on your head as well.
I think that was mine for yesterday.
Thanks,
Probably
gorgeous.
still in there.
For better focus. And that was more consistent as well, weren't it?
Are we good?
Happy?
Yeah.
Firing?
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah. Well done, Harry.
Cool.
Firing?
Yeah, go for it.
Idled alright, didn't it?
Idle's fine, yeah. Like, to be fair, it's not going to be right because it's got no exhaust on it, is it?
We just got it running, as you saw. Very loud, lots of fire and flames and stuff, but it works, it idles, and it does all the stuff it's supposed to do, which is a result after a lot of messing around and finding out that the HT leads were on the wrong way around and a few other little bits and bobs. So we've got it sussed now, so we can put it all back together properly now. So with the engine running now, and we know it works and everything, we're just trying to dial everything in and get it done right. So Harry's cracking on with the wiring again, trying to make that all nice and routing everything nice and mounting a bunch of other bits and bobs, which I'll show you in a minute. I have tried to do something with an exhaust. There's not a stack of room, so the exhaust comes out here for one cylinder and then down here for the other cylinder, and I've basically used the existing manifold pieces and just shortened them to try and get in a bit of a bend that will fit in there. And the plan was just to have them coming outside and that's it, done. The front one will be all right, the back one should be far enough away from body parts to be okay. There's just a few other bits and bobs. 3D scanned up the carbs and then 3D printed this fit in here so that we can stick a cone filter on there. I've just got to do the other side. But yeah, just 3D scanned the filter housing, the original filter housing, and then drew it on the computer and then knocked that up and 3D printed it. After we got the engine running and stuff, we had all of the harness sort of mounted externally so that we knew that everything was connected right and that the engine would actually run. So what I've done since then is labelled everything so we know where it goes, disconnected it all, and then tried to sort of route it a little bit more neatly. We've got an actual motorcycle battery now rather than running the two car batteries in the jump pack that we had. So just mounted that there, so that'll sit underneath the seat. A couple of the control boxes and like the fuse box and the starter relay are going to be in here. Cut a hole in the firewall just to pass the harness out, and then that'll all connect up to the engine properly. Just don't want anything that's going to rub through those hoses, that's all. Because I can get it to land right on the existing engine mount. And then this side, if we extended it, we could do the same. A couple of things, we need to get the bonnet to stay down. So we need a way of fixing that down, and then Harrison needs some mounting points for coil packs. So we're just trying to figure out what's good and what's not, and then that's what holds it. That's what it sits on. So I was going to make something that came out like that, like weld on an extra piece for it to slot into. But it don't need to be that complex really. So we're pressing on as much as we possibly can, which is why we're not doing so much detail on the filming and stuff, because Mud Billies is not that far away now, so we want to get this done and out the door so that we can actually make it to the event. Again. Boom! One side done, and I've done your little bracket for you.
For me?
Yep.
Thanks.
Oh my god. The pressure I'm on film. Nice. So done my little bonnet latches there. How do you reckon the joy?
Don't mind me.
So yeah, done my little bar clips there, one on either side, and then just give it a really good pull and maybe get some tools. Don't want it falling off, do we? Just like that. So I've done the mounts for the bonnet, and then a couple of mounts for the coil packs or leads or whatever you want to call them that mower bikes have. To mount them up there, and then Harry can crack on with the rest of the wiring. Should have put a 300 TDI in it. Only got one wire.
What are you doing?
Getting oil everywhere. Making a mess. We're stripping down the gearbox and making a mess everywhere. So this is an open diff inside there, which is great, but not for what we want it for. We need both wheels to be turning together so you actually get somewhere, because otherwise we'll just end up with a one tyre fire everywhere, and that won't be any fun. So we're taking it to pieces so that we can weld up the diff and then put it back together again and then put it back on the lawnmower. Ping! I think it's still going, isn't it? Which hand?
Your turn. I'm gonna go cry in a corner now.
Swepco, Swepco.
There's no label.
The label fell off. That's how good the oil is. The label fell off the outside of the can.
Yeah, because look how far that's butted up against.
Yeah.
So what do you think's happened?
The shafts that we've put on are now stopping it from coming apart, because instead of separating inside, you have to pull the shafts out with it, which is somewhat annoying. Yeah, we might get to that, but it's not. There's no circlip or anything, so that's fine. It can come out. Yeah, go on.
There we go.
Ta-da! There we go. So we've got it to pieces eventually after a bit of fighting. Just finding all the bits that we lost. So the shafts that we've welded on have to pass through the casing to allow it to come to pieces, but they're the exact diameter of the hole, which means they didn't want to come through very easily. We've messed around, got it as far apart as possible, and then undone the diff bolts and separated the diff. So half of the diff is in there with a shaft and half of the diff is in there with a shaft as well. Now we need to weld up the diff. So you've got a sun gear here, which is the big one, and then the planetary gears, which are the small ones. And then the same again in the other side. Sun gear, planet gears. Essentially we could just weld up all of those together and they'd move all together and not rotate as they should and create a differential. But I think, I'm gonna have a look. I think if we take all this out and then just weld the sun gear to this casing, then that'll do the same thing. And I think if we knock this pin out, this roll pin, then it means that the shaft will come out of the diff, like a conventional one would on a normal live axle car or solid axle car. You strip down the hub and everything, and then you pull the shaft out of the diff. And I'm thinking if we do it like that, we can do that exact same thing, and it means that we can get it to pieces a lot easier in the future.
What will stop the shaft just coming out?
The same as on a normal axle, so the hub end is what retains the shaft, and then it just sort of floats in the diff and is supported in the diff, so all the stuff, the hub and the hub nut and the wheel bearing and everything will keep it from moving around. Or you do have half shafts that actually float. They're only retained because they've got a circlip or something on them, and they actually float up and down. I'm thinking we can do that. The best bit is this gearbox is in awesome condition. Other than some horrific oil and a little bit of swarf from where we've drilled the case in, it's actually in really good condition. Right, now do it. Pinchy! That hurt, Harry?
Yeah.
Cool little big gearbox, to be fair. We've taken the rear gearbox off and stripped it down to clean it out. We wanted to clean it out where we've drilled, obviously swarf will have gone inside, so we've done that, stripped it apart, cleaned it out, and then at the same time we've welded the diff up, because it's an open diff. If we left it that way, especially off-road, it would just spin one wheel a lot of the time. With the power this will have, it'd just spin one wheel and we'd go nowhere, and it'd be useless to us and not as much fun either. So we've welded the diff up, which was lots of fun and gave me a sore throat because I inhaled a lot of fumes, and then cleaned it all down, put it all back together again, and now reassembling it back on the lawnmower. We need to fill it up with some Swepco, and then that'll be good to go. Then that'll give us the drive that we need. I've dug out a bit of scrap pipe that we'd got in the shelf there. It's already got a couple of bends because I think it'll work nicely for a bit of exhaust just to get it away from your leg. So I'm just going to chop this up, put it in, see if it looks all right and misses your leg enough, and then weld it up. Just want to get a bit of space there, because obviously if we did it straight, it'd be really close to your leg and get really hot. And with that kink, it just moves it away a bit, cuts it off there. Then all the fire can go that way and not on your leg. Something like that, I think. So if it comes out there, that'll be all right there, wouldn't it? I think so. Choppy choppy. With that top one done the same again down low, because we had a similar piece of tube with the same sort of bend in it, and this one works quite nice because at full lock it swoops the same as the top one, but then it comes around the wheel really nice, which is cool, and away from your foot. It's not just spitting straight into the tyre, and it's not all the way around and then spitting into your foot. So I quite like that one, and then that one sort of mimics the same sort of thing, so I think that'll do. 3D printed that bush up now, and which just goes on the column here and just carries the top part of the column and then sits in this bit here. I've just got to get the tape out of the way now. We've wedged a load of tape in there and I can't get the bush in. But basically that'll drop in there and then down into this panel here, and then that'll carry that nicely so it doesn't wobble around, and that's just 3D printed. Oh, like a glove, look.
What are these for?
There's a few more washers for tidying up the brake cables, so I can cable tie everything up. LAWNMOWER. Thought that was leaking oil then. Gearbox is going back on now. Harry's just trying to find the hole. And then we can bolt the axle casings back on, shafts in, hubs and everything back on, wheels back on, and then drop it down, and that's all done then. And we've been through a stack of other bits and bobs, so we're just chipping off little things now. A few things that we've sort of just smashed through really quickly to get done. Big one is the throttle cable. So we got the brakes and everything sorted out some time ago. Now it's to this side to get the throttle pedal done. I've used the existing throttle pedal, fabbed up this sort of bracket down here to carry a cable that runs up to the carbs up here, which is the stock setup for the carb. So now we can run a throttle pedal that'll operate that. So that's a big one. And that's just using the standard sort of cable, like a brake cable for a bike. Obviously exhausts we've spoken about, so they're big ones. So another really big one for us was, on the bike it has a huge airbox that carries an air filter, which obviously we don't want to run on this. So what we've done is I've 3D scanned the top of the airbox, and then we 3D printed these sort of, I don't know what you'd call them, just ports or flanges that bolt to the existing carbs and then allow you to put on a standard cone filter. So we got these cone filters from a friend of ours, Jason Zembruski, sorted us out with those two cone filters, and they fit really nice. And then when the bonnet's down, they sort of just stick out the top, which is pretty cool. Super neat, super compact, but still looks really cool and goes with the rest of the sort of aesthetics or whatever of this project. So that's another big one that we've done. So a couple of other big bits, obviously Harry's finished off these sort of, I don't know what you call them, guardrails, feet rails, leg saverers, and they look really cool. Love the mesh and everything. And then we've done chain guards, because this is literally in between your legs. You've got a chain on this side and then the bigger chain on the other side. We've used some 6mm 50 by 50 angle to just knock up like really heavy duty monstrous chain guards with inspection plates, so that you can get the pulley off and everything, and then the same again the other side. So if a chain does let go, it's going to be reasonably safe. It's not going to hurt anybody, which is quite important. Quite like my legs. Cheeky little other bit that we've done is we've bolted on some quality eBay special headlights, yellow ones. They'll house the little googly eyes. Bolted them on. Harry has wired them, but then I pulled all the wiring off so I could weld other stuff. One thing I want to tell you about that I can't really show you fully because we've got ahead of ourselves. We got the chain finished on this side, which was really easy to do, and then I bought an off-the-shelf tensioner, which is this thing here. It's like a little nylon wheel on two bearings, and then there's a pivot point about here behind this plate that's then sprung, and that's what keeps the tension on the chain. So that was another cheeky little thing that we've done. We've employed the camera lady because she's got tiny little hands, and there's two really small bolts in there. Now look, you can see that one there. Your hands weren't small enough. Your little monkey hands weren't small enough. Now I've got to get my stupid shovel fingers in there. Sweet, they're tight.
And the bottom ones are as well.
I haven't done the bottom ones. Hello. With the fact that we opened the gearbox up and then welded the diff up, we realised that we could make a bit of a modification to the way we've got things. So at the minute, we've got these shafts that we've made up. That half is original Wheelhorse that was in there, and it was retained with a roll pin that goes through that hole, which meant it couldn't come out. And when we welded up the diff, we knocked that roll pin out and then realised that this now could be removed and it wouldn't be any detrimental to its function. The only problem we've got is if it was not retained and it was floating, it would literally just fall out the axle. We basically need to put something on here there'll be a backstop that stops it coming through the bearing. So if the nut fell off, for example, it wouldn't go anywhere, it'd still always be there and it can't physically come out, which is essentially how it is on the Can-Ams, because obviously this end's Can-Am. The CV is big at this end, and then you tighten the nut up and it squeezes down on the bearing and keeps it there. So we've got it all apart, but once we've welded something on there, we'll have shafts that we can just pull straight out, which means that when they get broken, which they will, we can fix them a little bit quicker, and it just makes it a bit of a nicer process.
Because Harry's top's wet and it looks like
I'm covered in it. We had an incident. Yeah, that's enough.
That's all I've got, mate. She's empty.
You have, that's all the air out, so let me put that.
I feel like it's doing stuff.
Not really. That's it. That's going to come flying out of there.
Off. It might be that you can't just do it by hand because we're still trying to turn over a gearbox. Go all the way to 6th.
Hang on.
That's it. So you're in 6th now. Clutch.
Yeah.
There's brake fluid everywhere. And I really, really like brake fluid. It's my favourite thing in the world. We've just fitted the clutch lever, which is the clutch reservoir and everything. And then that's the slave right there, which has a push rod that goes through to the clutch, which is on the opposite side of the engine. We've got resistance there, so we're going to fire it up now and just see if it actually disengages the clutch or not. The only other thing that we've not shown you then, which we won't show you too closely because it's hideous, is that we've fitted a little Chinese electric fan. It might not be Chinese, I think it's Chinese. It possibly is Chinese, I don't know. And I've just discovered a coolant leak. So we fitted that fan, which comes on to cool the engine, obviously, because this is a water-cooled engine, and on the bike it had 2 rads that probably equated to bigger than that with fans, so we've stuck that on. It's not going to be under massive load or anything like that, but that should just give us a bit of cooling. Which is cool. Like that.
Fuel pump. Yeah. Now start.
Nope. That light's bright, isn't it?
Yeah. Too early. Not warming up. Hey, not warming up.
Not doing anything.
You're not putting the choke in.
No.
Check how much fuel it's got in it, to be fair. It might not have any fuel.
We might have run out of fuel.
Was it? Yeah, I think we have. That would be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can fix that. Can you guide me in?
Yeah,
Nothing quite like sitting on a fuel tank you made yourself.
Do you want me to put the seat on?
No.
It's literally like
that.
You've got a little bit of idle, haven't you, before the spring kicks in, which is good because it means you can sort of
rest your foot on it and stuff. Yeah. Okie dokie. Ready? Nah, you'd hear it.
No.
No fuel pump.
Anything's happened?
We broke it.
Harry's dodgy wiring.
It's on again. I don't think that fuel pump's on properly.
There we go. Now it's pumping. Let it pump a minute, Harry.
Yeah, so look at the amount of...
Yeah.
Oh, proper hear it now.
Yeah. Go and stand at the back. So we have made it to Mud Billies end of summer sends 2024. The lawnmower is finished, as you can see. This is what it looked like before.
It works.
And obviously this is what it looks like now. So Honda VTR engine, custom front axle, very heavily modified rear axle, custom seat, full chain drive setup, and a load of other little bits and bats to make it the monster that it is now. A little bit later on we'll be taking it out on the track and hopefully ripping and hopefully getting somewhere and it not getting stuck being only two-wheel drive.
Hi everybody, we are live from Mud Billies, end of summer sends, and I'm just getting ready to do 3 practice laps for the miscellaneous class. Just having a little bit of an issue.
Come on, champs!
So I got Harry just running in there. I said to Shabs, do you want me to do a live for free practice or not bother? And he's like, no, do a live just in case we don't even make it.
The police moving on the fucking jump. Just fine, lad.
So what's going on?
So the rear sprocket that's on the gearbox is spun on its shaft, so we're just going to get a welder and weld it on.
Oh, okay. So is that quite a quick, easy fix?
Can be if we had a welder. Morning. Right. Hope you haven't gone far.
Back at Mud Billies, and we have got miscellaneous class just starting to line up. We've made it out. So we'll see how this goes. So this is the first race. Up until now they've been doing free practice and qualifying. We unfortunately, if you've been following us, you'll have seen that we didn't make it out for free practice. Needed a bit of welding. One of the sprockets spinning, basically spinning on the shaft. It's been fine up until now, but we've not really tested it. Oh dear, this is going to be a bit nuts. There's a guy with the green flag getting ready. So that's 5 seconds now. So what happened?
Hang on. So shifted gears a few times, that was fine. And then I think we've got an intermediate shaft going from one side to the other of the width of the car, and one side's spinning and the other side's not spinning, so that's broke again.
Oh dear.
That's a different one, so the engine side's spinning but the other side isn't.
Fixable?
I'll find out when we get the covers off, I suppose. Super tight there, I reckon.
So, Mud Billies, this started to rain, obviously, but we have decided, or not decided, been decided for us, that we're going to call it because so the sprocket sheared itself off the end of the shaft and bent the shaft as well, we don't know quite how, which means it was a nightmare getting the shaft out, and we broke one of the pillar block bearings, so we need a pillar block bearing and a 20mm shaft, which we're not going to get on a Saturday in the middle of a field in Devon. So we can't do anything about fixing it. So we're just going to leave it, take it easy for the rest of the weekend, enjoy the show, and yeah, come back there. Thank you.